You're allowed to leave a relationship that isn't bad just because it isn't right. Let me tell you something that might change everything for you right now. You're allowed to leave a relationship even if they never cheated, even if they never lied, even if they never raised their voice or broke a promise, even if everyone thinks they're perfect for you. You're allowed to leave simply because you're not happy. I know that feels selfish. I know it feels wrong. I know you've been taught that good people don't give up, that commitment means staying through the hard parts, that love is a choice you make every day, regardless of how you feel. But here's what nobody told you: there's a difference between staying through a difficult season and staying in a relationship that fundamentally doesn't fit who you are. And right now, if you're reading this, I'm guessing you already know which one you're in. We often wait for a betrayal or a blow up to justify leaving. We wait for them to cheat so we'll have a story that makes sense. We wait for them to become mean so we can point to something concrete. We wait for a fight big enough to justify walking away. Because without that moment, without that clear villain, without that obvious reason, how do you explain it? How do you tell your family that you're leaving someone who treats you well? How do you tell your friends that you're ending a relationship with someone who loves you? How do you explain to yourself that you're walking away from something that looks perfect on paper but feels empty in your chest? So you wait. You wait for them to give you permission to leave by doing something unforgivable. You wait for the relationship to get bad enough that no one will question your decision. You wait for proof that you tried hard enough, stayed long enough, gave enough chances. But while you're waiting, something else is happening. You're shrinking. Let me describe what I mean by shrinking, because this is important. Shrinking is when you stop mentioning your dreams because they don't fit into the life you're building together. It's when you edit your thoughts before you speak them because you've learned that full honesty creates distance. Shrinking is when you laugh at jokes that aren't funny and agree with opinions you don't hold because keeping peace feels more important than being authentic. It's when you stop reaching out to friends as much because your relationship takes so much energy that you have nothing left to give. When you cancel plans because you're emotionally exhausted from pretending everything is fine. Shrinking is when you look at old photos of yourself and barely recognize the person staring back. When you remember who you used to be before this relationship and wonder where that version of you went. It's waking up next to someone and feeling profoundly alone. It's being in a relationship but feeling like you're performing a role rather than living your life. Shrinking is the slow, quiet erasure of yourself in the name of making something work that was never meant to work. And here's the devastating part: they might not even notice because shrinking happens so gradually, so quietly, that by the time you realize you've disappeared, you've forgotten how to take up space. I know what you're thinking right now, but they're a good person. I believe you. They probably are. They're kind. They're responsible. They remember birthdays and help with chores and say they love you. They've never intentionally hurt you. They're trying, they care. And that's exactly what makes this so hard. Because if they were terrible, this would be easy. If they were cruel or neglectful or abusive, you would have left already. Everyone would support you, you'd have clarity, but they're not terrible. They're just not right. And somehow that feels worse because it means the problem isn't them, which makes you think the problem must be you, that you're too picky, too demanding, too difficult to please, that you should be grateful for someone who loves you and stop looking for something more. But here's the truth that took me a long time to understand: two good people can be completely wrong for each other. You can both be kind, loyal, honest, and trying your best and still not fit. You can both be doing everything right and still feel like something essential is missing. This isn't about blame. This isn't about anyone being broken or failing. This is about compatibility, about alignment, about whether your souls actually speak the same language. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's just a fundamental mismatch that no amount of effort can bridge. I'm not happy here is a valid reason to leave. I need you to hear that again because I know you've been told otherwise your entire life. I'm not happy here is a valid reason. You don't need a police report. You don't need evidence of wrongdoing. You don't need a list of grievances long enough to satisfy a jury. You don't need anyone's permission except your own. Your unhappiness is not a moral failing, it's information. It's your life telling you that something is misaligned. And ignoring that information doesn't make you loyal, it makes you dishonest because staying when you don't want to stay is a lie. Living a life that doesn't fit is a betrayal of yourself, and pretending to feel something you don't feel is unfair to both of you. Think about it. Would you want someone to stay with you out of guilt, out of obligation, because they couldn't justify leaving? Or would you want someone who genuinely wants to be there, who chooses you freely, who isn't silently suffering through your relationship? Your partner deserves someone who isn't counting down the days, someone who doesn't fantasize about a different life, someone who doesn't feel trapped, and you deserve to stop pretending. Let me be clear about what this message is and isn't. This isn't about leaving at the first sign of difficulty. It's not about running when things get hard or abandoning ship during temporary rough patches. Relationships go through seasons. There are times when you'll need to choose love even when you don't feel it. Times when commitment means working through challenges. Times when staying is the brave choice. But there's a difference between a difficult season, where the foundation is solid but life is overwhelming, where you're both stressed but still connected, where the problems are external and temporary, and a fundamental misfit, where even on good days something feels off, where you're not growing together but growing apart, where you've been trying for years and nothing has truly changed. This message is for people in the second category, people who have already tried, who have already communicated, who have already given chance after chance, who have already done the work and still feel empty. This is for people who aren't leaving because things got hard. They're leaving because they've realized that no amount of effort will make this relationship into what they need it to be. The guilt of leaving someone who loves you is one of the heaviest things you'll ever carry. It feels like betrayal, like cruelty, like you're destroying someone's life for your own selfish reasons. You imagine their face when you tell them. You think about how confused they'll be because, from their perspective, everything was fine. You picture them calling their family, telling their friends, wondering what they did wrong, and the guilt says, how can you do this to them? The guilt says, they've done nothing wrong. The guilt says, you're going to ruin their life. The guilt says, you're not trying hard enough. But here's what guilt doesn't tell you: staying doesn't help them either. Staying while unhappy means they're in a relationship with someone who wishes they were somewhere else. It means they're building a future with someone who's only half present. It means they're loving someone who's slowly dying inside. How is that kind? How is that loyal? How is that better than honesty? The truth is, guilt keeps you stuck because it focuses on the moment of pain, the breakup, the conversation, the immediate aftermath, rather than the years of slow misery that stretch ahead if you stay. Guilt makes you think that leaving is the cruelest option, but sometimes staying is crueler. When you leave a relationship that isn't right, here's what you're actually choosing. You're choosing honesty over comfort. You're choosing long-term authenticity over short-term peace. You're choosing to honor your one life instead of living someone else's version of what your life should look like. You're choosing to believe that both of you deserve relationships where you're fully chosen, not just tolerated, where you're wanted, not endured, where love feels like expansion, not confinement. You're choosing to trust that there's something better waiting, not because your partner is bad, but because the fit is wrong. And wrong fit with a good person is still wrong. You're choosing courage over guilt, growth over stagnation, truth over pretense. And yes, you're also choosing pain: the pain of disappointing people, the pain of starting over, the pain of not knowing what comes next. But here's what I want you to consider: that pain is temporary. The pain of staying in the wrong relationship is permanent. One is the pain of transformation, the other is the pain of slow death. Choose transformation. You don't have to wait for them to hurt you to prove that you deserve a love that actually fits. You don't have to wait until you're so broken that leaving becomes the only option. You don't have to wait until the relationship becomes toxic to justify wanting something different. You don't have to earn your exit by suffering enough. You can leave while you still have love for them. You can leave while they're still good to you. You can leave before it gets ugly. In fact, leaving before resentment builds, before you hate them, before every good memory is tainted, that's the kindest way to leave. That's how you preserve the dignity of what you shared while acknowledging that it's time to move on. Because here's something nobody tells you: the longer you wait, the harder it gets. The more years you invest, the more guilt you accumulate. The deeper the roots grow, the more painful the uprooting becomes. If you know in your soul that this isn't your forever, don't waste more years trying to convince yourself otherwise. Don't give more of your life to something your heart has already left. Your future self is begging you to be brave now. I won't lie to you. Leaving is hard. There will be days when you question everything, days when you miss them so much it physically hurts, days when you wonder if you made a terrible mistake. You'll hear their song on the radio and cry. You'll see couples doing mundane things and feel the loss of ordinary moments. You'll wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. The guilt will come in waves. So will the doubt. So will the loneliness. But somewhere in the middle of all that pain, something else will start to happen. You'll remember what it feels like to breathe fully. You'll start making decisions based on what you actually want instead of what keeps the peace. You'll reconnect with parts of yourself you thought were gone forever. You'll laugh without restraint. You'll dream without limitation. You'll take up space without apologizing. And slowly, gradually, you'll realize that you're not shrinking anymore. You're expanding. You're becoming. You're returning to yourself. And that feeling of being whole again, will confirm that leaving was not an act of cowardice. It was an act of self respect. So if you're reading this and you've been waiting for permission, here it is. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to want more than fine. You're allowed to believe that you deserve a love that doesn't require you to disappear. Don't let guilt keep you in a place where you're shrinking. Don't let fear of judgment keep you in a relationship that's killing your spirit. Don't let loyalty to the past prevent you from building a future that actually fits. You have one life, one miraculous, unrepeatable life. And spending it in a relationship that doesn't nourish your soul is not noble. It's not selfless. It's not love. It's just afraid. And you are braver than your fear. You are stronger than your guilt. You are worthy of a love that feels like home instead of a cage. So save this if you needed to hear it today. Come back to it when the guilt gets loud. Share it with someone who's been shrinking for too long. And remember, leaving someone who loves you doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you an honest one. And honesty, even when it hurts, is always the more loving choice.